Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. Well, I come from Alabama with a guitar on my knee. You know, trusting God with your life, it ain't always easy. No, sir, but it sure is important to do. If you recollect, I told you about this old boy named Moses, starting out when he was just a little feller, and how God cared about everything that had ever happened to him. You know, that didn't change for Moses when he got older, not a chance. Later on in his life, Moses spent his days taking care of his father-in-law's sheep. Seems pretty ordinary if you ask me, but that was all about to change. Because one day, while Moses was with all of his sheep, he went up on the side of this mountain. And sure enough, as he was walking, he stumbled upon this bush that was on fire. Wouldn't you know it though, the bush didn't burn up. As he moseyed on over to get a closer look, God spoke to Moses from that bush. He couldn't believe his ears, but he was listening for sure. God told Moses that he knew about the trouble his people, the Israelites, were having, and that he had heard their cries for help. God then said that he would save his people by taking them from Egypt and leading them to a good land where they would be free from all of their troubles. But there was just one thing. God told Moses that he wanted him to go to the Pharaoh and ask him to free all the Israelites from being slaves and let them leave Egypt. Well, Moses wasn't ready to hear that sort of talk. He had doubts. I reckon he worried that Pharaoh wouldn't even listen to him. Or even if he did, would the Israelites want to follow him in the first place? So wouldn't you believe it, Moses still protested. And even though God promised to use all of his great power against Pharaoh, Moses was still saying things like he wasn't good at speaking on account that he stuttered a bit, and maybe God should just go and get somebody else to do it. Well, God decided to give Moses some help, and he gave him his very own brother Aaron. Well, Moses called Aaron up to speed on everything, all that had happened and all that God wanted him to do, and the two proceeded to round up all the Israelite leaders, and they explained exactly what God's plan was for his people. They all trusted that God cared about what was going on, and then they bowed down and worshiped him. That was the start of getting those Israelites out of slavery. And even though it didn't make sense to Moses why God would choose somebody like him to save the Israelites, well, Moses learned that he could trust God with his life. And when you know that you can trust God with your life, well, that's a mighty fine way to live.